I'm 29 years old, and what I'm about to share began as nothing more than a strange childhood memory. For years, I told myself it was just my imagination, something every kid goes through. But lately, I can't stop thinking about it. And the more I look back, the less certain I am that it was ever imaginary at all. When I was little, I had what everyone called an imaginary friend. Her name was Esther. That's what I always called her, though my parents, teachers, everyone else, they would just laugh and say, "Oh, he has an imaginary friend." But Esther never felt imaginary to me. I only ever saw her inside the house. Never outside, never in the car, just within the walls of home. She was older than me. Not much, maybe a few years, but she always felt like an older sister. She had this quiet, watchful presence. I'd find her sitting by the attic window with a book in her hands, or standing in the upstairs hallway where the light always seemed dimmer than it should have been. I remember her clothes so clearly. She always wore a faded green sweater, one that looked old even back then. Her jeans were torn at the right knee, and her shoes were scuffed and worn like they'd been through too much. I never asked why she dressed like that. Kids don't ask those kinds of things. They just accept what's in front of them. She didn't like water. That part always stuck with me. I'd try to coax her into the backyard when the sprinkler was on, and she'd shake her head silently, refusing to go. She'd never come near the kitchen sink either, or the bathroom. Places with water, it was like they shut her out. She had boundaries, too, rooms she would never enter. The kitchen, the bathroom, and especially the car. Not once, not ever. I even told my preschool teacher once that Esther couldn't come to school with me because Mom said she wasn't allowed in the car. My teacher smiled and asked who Esther was. When I explained, she brought it up to my mom later that day. My mom just laughed and called me imaginative. By the time I was 7, Esther was gone. She stopped showing up. I didn't really mourn it. Kids move on. My parents never mentioned her again. Neither did I. It was like she'd faded into some corner of memory that I never had reason to look at again. Until recently. A couple of months ago, my family had dinner together. Nothing special, just a typical family get-together. My younger sister was there, so was my aunt. We were swapping childhood stories, laughing about dumb things we did as kids. And without really thinking, I made a joke. I said, "Remember when I used to talk to that imaginary girl Esther all the time?" I expected laughter, maybe an eye roll. Instead, my aunt's face drained of color. She froze with her fork halfway to her mouth, then quietly excused herself from the table. She didn't come back for a long time. Nobody else said a word, but the air in the room felt heavier after that. When everyone was leaving, my aunt pulled me aside at the door. She didn't look me in the eye. She just leaned close and whispered, "That wasn't an imaginary friend. That was your sister." And then she left, just like that, like she hadn't just detonated my entire childhood with one sentence. I always thought I was the oldest. I grew up with one sibling, my younger sister. Same schools, same neighborhood friends, everything. We never heard of another child. There were no photos, no stories, no trace of anyone else. The next morning, I asked my mom about it. She frowned like she didn't know what I was talking about. She said my aunt must have been mistaken, that Esther was just a figment of my imagination. My dad's reaction was worse. He got angry. He told me to leave the past alone, that digging into things that weren't my business would only hurt people. Then he walked away. That night, my sister texted me. She said she had never heard about another sibling either, but the whole thing unsettled her. She begged me not to push too hard, but I could tell she was just as shaken as I was. I tried reaching out to my aunt again, but she stopped answering my calls. No replies to texts. It was like she had vanished. So I went looking on my own. I dug up an old box of VHS tapes in the garage. My dad's home videos. Birthdays, Christmas mornings, family parties. I borrowed a clunky old TV and VCR and started watching. Most of it was harmless nostalgia. But then I put on the tape for my 3rd birthday. And that's when I saw her. Behind my mom, standing in the hallway, there was a girl, older than me, watching quietly. She wasn't one of the kids from the party. She wasn't my sister. She was wearing a green sweater. The same green sweater. I rewound the tape and played it again. There she was, standing still, watching. And then, when the camera panned away and back again, she was gone. My heart was pounding, because I remembered that party. I remembered looking for Esther that day and not finding her. And yet, she was there. Somehow, she was there. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that sweater, those quiet eyes in the background of my birthday tape. The next day, I drove to my aunt's house. She didn't answer the door at first, but I knew she was inside. I could hear the TV faintly. I stood there for 10 minutes before she finally opened up. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in weeks. I didn't waste time. What did you mean when you said Esther was my sister? Her eyes filled with tears instantly. She shook her head. I shouldn't have said anything. Your parents will never forgive me. I pressed harder. I told her about the VHS tape, about the girl in the sweater, about my memories. Finally, she broke. She told me there was another child, my parents' firstborn, a girl. Her name was Esther. I just stood there, numb, as my aunt explained. Esther had drowned when she was around 7 years old. I wasn't even born yet. My parents never told me, never told my sister. They erased her from every photo album, every memory, every story. It was like she had never existed. But somehow, I remembered her. Somehow, she had been there. I walked out of my aunt's house in a daze. My whole life felt like a lie. I drove back to my apartment, but sat in the car for over an hour, staring at the steering wheel, replaying her words again and again. Esther had drowned, and yet in my childhood, she avoided water. She wouldn't go near it. The thought made my stomach turn cold. That night, I dreamed about her for the first time in decades. In the dream, I was back in my childhood home, standing in the hallway. She was there, wearing that green sweater, staring at me with those same watchful eyes. But this time, her skin was pale, waterlogged. Her hair clung to her face as if she had just climbed out a river. She lifted her hand and pointed at me. And when she opened her mouth, water spilled out instead of words. I woke up gasping, my sheets damp with sweat, but the sound of water dripping, still echoed in my ears. I thought it was just in my head until I turned on the light. There was a puddle of water on my bedroom floor, and no leak, no spilled glass, nothing, just water. I didn't tell anyone about the puddle. What could I even say? That my dead sister was dripping water onto my bedroom floor? But the next night, it happened again. This time, I woke up to the sound of running water. I stumbled into the bathroom and found the faucet turned on full blast, the sink overflowing. My hands were shaking when I turned it off. When I looked up into the mirror, I swear for half a second it wasn't me staring back. It was her, Esther, wet hair plastered against her forehead, her green sweater dripping onto the tiles. I smashed the light switch and the image disappeared. But I didn't sleep again. The days blurred after that. I kept seeing her everywhere. Reflections in windows, shadows at the edge of crowds, faces in photographs that shouldn't have been there. At work, I found myself doing the same sweater over and over again without realizing it. I tried to convince myself it was guilt. Maybe I was just losing my mind after finding out about her. But then something happened that I can't explain away. My sister, the one I grew up with, came to visit. She was sitting in my kitchen, scrolling through her phone, when she suddenly asked me, "Hey, do you ever feel like we used to have another sister?" I froze. My throat went dry. I asked her what she meant. She frowned, like she was trying to drag the memory out from the bottom of a deep well. I don't know. I keep seeing this girl in my head. Brown hair, green sweater. She looks like us, but not. It's like she was, here, but I can't remember when or how. I didn't know what to say. I thought I was the only one. That night, I dreamt of Esther again. Only this time, she spoke. Her voice was gurgling, broken, like it came through a mouthful of water. "You forgot me." When I woke up, there was another puddle by my bed, and in the middle of it was a single tiny waterlogged shoe. I didn't throw the shoe away. I don't know why. Some part of me felt like if I touched it too much, if I got rid of it, I'd make things worse. So I left it sitting on my dresser, water soaking into the wood. For 3 nights, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd hear her voice, "You forgot me." Sometimes it was a whisper. Sometimes it was a scream that yanked me back into consciousness, heart pounding. On the 4th night, I gave in. I whispered into the dark, "I didn't forget you, Esther. I never knew you." The air in the room shifted, heavy and wet, like the inside of a cave after a storm. And then the dripping started. At first, it was faint, like a leaky faucet somewhere in the house. But it grew louder, closer. I turned my head toward the corner of the room and felt my stomach drop. She was there, not in a dream, not in a reflection. She was standing in the corner, hair hanging in clumps, clothes clinging to her skin, a steady stream of water running off her and pooling at her bare feet. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. She stepped closer. With every step, the floorboards groaned and the puddles spread wider, soaking the rug, crawling toward me. When she finally reached the bed, she leaned forward, her face inches from mine. Her eyes were pale, almost milky, but I knew, deep down, that she could see me perfectly. "You lived my life," she gurgled. "You took what was mine." I tried to speak, to explain, but my throat locked shut. She placed her freezing hand on my chest. The chill shot through me, burning cold, spreading into my ribs, into my lungs. I gasped and felt water rising in my throat, choking, drowning me from inside. The last thing I remember before blacking out was her whisper in my ear, "Now you'll remember." When I woke up, it was morning. My bed was dry. My room was spotless. No puddles, no shoe. Except there's something new on my dresser. A framed photo, one I've never seen before. It's me, my sisters, and Esther, all smiling, like she's always been here.